Maybe you're starting to explore a career as an appraiser and want to know if now is the right time to get started. Or you're measuring your career span in decades and want to find out more about the latest apps, technology, and resources that can make your life and work a bit easier. Get the answers and insight you need with Beyond the Numbers, a podcast from McKissock Learning. I'm Julie Mollendorp Floyd, course and curriculum developer and instructor here at McKissock. Join me and an expert guest each week as we dive into the topics that matter most to appraisers, from industry and education news to marketing and other insights to help you run your business more effectively. If you'd like to stay at the forefront of appraisal news, boost your career, or just learn more about the profession, subscribe to Beyond the Numbers with McKissock Appraisal at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hope to see you there soon. Welcome to Beyond the Numbers with McKissock Appraisal. I'm your host, Julie Mollendorp Floyd, instructor for McKissock and Vice President of Regulatory Affairs for RSDS Appraisal Diversity. Today's guest is my friend Heather Sullivan. She's definitely a titan in the appraisal industry and someone I am proud to consider my friend. Officially, she's the head of learning and development for Aloft, but she's done so much more. She was recently named the Appraiser of the Year for the National Association of Appraisers, and she's a current member of the Appraisal Standards Board. But enough about all the amazing things you've done. Let's get to our discussion topic for the day, Heather.
Sounds great.
For years, appraisers have kind of operated in this mysterious fashion where they just said appraisers' experience and knowledge of the market was used as the basis for their sales comparison adjustments. But we know now times have changed. We're now being asked to support our adjustments more than ever and support them and support them. And while there are many tools out there to help in this endeavor, one that's frequently overlooked is depreciated cost. And I know that's one you have a passion for, Heather. So let's talk about it.
Oh, sounds great.
So many appraisers don't believe in the cost approach fundamentally. They say cost doesn't equal value. So what can the cost approach do for them in their appraisal analysis?
Well, I believe that many appraisers don't believe the cost approach to value doesn't equal value, market value for a number of reasons. And unfortunately, I think many of those reasons are the appraiser's lack of understanding of their role and responsibility in developing the cost approach. When you think about the cost approach, there's not really a line on it to bring the data current. So if you're using raw land sales or extracted site values to come up with your opinion of site value, if you haven't brought that information current, you're probably
Mm,
missing out on, in the last few years, some pretty significant adjustments. Another aspect of this, and this is, me as a reviewer for many, many years, you know,
right.
the 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 3 boxes that take it from a cost to build to a market value are the physical, functional, and external obsolescence
Oh,
boxes.
yeah.
That is the market's reaction to those improvements, to that location, to all aspects of that property.
Okay.
And if we're not making those adjustments correctly, then we're probably not reflecting a market value. And so often I'll see like an appraisal where they say it's super adequate or,
Mm-hmm.
something like that where they just do the typical cost to build plus the land value and they get this
Right.
number that's
And call it a
higher.
day.
Yeah. And so they don't take that into consideration. And I think the third thing, is the as is value of the site improvements.
Mm, okay.
I live up in the Seattle metropolitan area. It is so costly to develop land. It's
Right.
it's like, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so if we're just using raw land sales that haven't been cleared or set for site development, permitting, all of that kind of stuff, that's not included in our cost data because it's
Right.
very area specific. So there's all these things that ultimately the appraiser is responsible for in the cost approach that is limiting our ability to produce a credible cost approach to value.
Ah, I see.
So, all that said,
So how
when
do you
we,
do it?
well, this is the trick. Uh, Using that cost approach framework on your comparable sales
Mhm.
gives you so much more information.
Okay.
And really, this becomes, instead of called the cost approach to value, it becomes the extraction method. It is
Right.
just the same data points, but in a different order, solving for a different thing. And
Okay.
so when you think about using the extraction method, now you have a sale price that anchors your market's reaction.
Okay.
You have to come up with some degree of land or site plus improvements, and you can start understanding the mechanics and the math behind and the contributory value of aspects when you set that same equation equal to a market value. And so that's
S-
really where I feel like the magic is that so many
Right.
appraisers are missing. We don't have a lot of good data. Like,
Right.
even in the Seattle area where there's lots of sales, but there's not that many sales in a particular market that are comparable to my property. I mean, we're still
Okay.
looking
So
at
what do
just
you
a
do?
handful, or we start using sales that aren't quite as similar. And I just think to do this, to use the extraction, it's a specific to that property approach that allows you to identify characteristics, quality, condition, price per square foot, uh, you know, bedrooms, bathrooms, functional obsolescence. It's really
Sure.
telling when you can break those things out based off of how much it would be to build it.
Okay. So walk me through your steps. You're trying to find out how much. Let's go with at a prudent like cool.
Yeah.
Walk me through how I could use the cost approach to help me figure out if I should make an adjustment or not, and if I should, how much should it be?
Yeah, great one. Not that I'm that familiar with pools up in the Seattle area, but
I'm in
I've
Kansas
done my
City. We don't
share.
have a lot either.
Um, it's one of those situations where I feel like we don't recognize how good the market is at pricing things out. As human beings, we're constantly evaluating everything on whether I hire someone to do it or I buy something with
Right.
it, or I buy it used versus I buy it new. And so we truly do a lot of, like, as a consumer, we base a lot
Mm,
of things
mhm.
on cost. And so when it comes to a pool, a great place to start is the cost it would to build that pool, right?
Right.
You're probably not gonna pay more because you have the space and it all works out. You would just hire somebody to build it for less. So
Sure.
you're not gonna pay more, and then you add that depreciation factor. So when you think about extraction, take the sale price and you deduct the the contributory value of the improvements, including that pool. Now, if your
Okay.
site value that's left over doesn't make sense in comparison to other similar sites, chances are that difference, if there's like a functional obsolescence for the pool, like maybe it's not captured in that
Okay.
contributory value, like up in the Pacific Northwest. What you'll find is your site value is low in comparison to
Hmm.
all the other ones because you actually gave that pool more value than what the market does.
Okay.
And so to make that site value hold true with all of your other site values, whatever that difference is, say it's 10,000, 20,000, whatever makes that site value in line with where it should be in comparison to others, that becomes your functional obsolescence adjustment.
Oh, okay.
And so you can do this on so many different things. It's truly a paired sale analysis, but
Hmm.
doing it right. Really
Wow. I
accounting
like
for
it.
all the different aspects of the property before you isolate that adjustment.
Okay. So you've put together a pretty amazing tool,
I think so, but
the
I'm
appraiser
biased.
toolkit. I've watched it. I know it is a passion project of yours. Tell us how the appraiser toolkit works. Tell us, how did it come about? How does it work?
Yeah, I started using the extraction method, like as my go-to method back when I was doing all the high dollar assignments, for a bank that I worked for, and I mean, I was
Okay.
doing assignments for multiple states. I wasn't the appraiser, but I had to find the appraiser, approve the appraisal when it came in, and
Gotcha.
verify that it was accurate and credible. And, it was really hard because these properties are all unique, atypical, you know,
Well, of
there's
course.
not stuff that brackets, but I had to have some really meaningful conversations with appraisers to make sure that their adjustments and their reason and rationale really made sense. And so I started doing this approach on those just so I could understand how the value was being attributed by the appraiser.
Okay.
And so the way it works is and Appraiser Toolkit has taken it far beyond my manual process that I used to do that took
Sure.
me hours. Uh, it actually is a tool that not only does a lot of the calculations, but it actually brings in the data. We spend
Okay.
so much time as appraisers digging through different data sources to verify information, to
Okay.
compare photos, look at pictures on a really granular level.
Mhm.
And that all takes a lot of time. And a lot of times we're flipping from website to website and having to redo searches and it's just the data collection piece is one of those things that take us a lot of time. But if something did it for us and just presented the information to us, we could make our decisions a lot quicker. And so
Okay.
I think to me that's one of the big features of Toolkit is it brings in MLS property, data from the public records, aerial maps. It
Mm.
has image analysis software, so it starts, comparing your properties to each other to give a range of effective age and quality, and so it really takes a lot of the research time out. You still have to make the decision as the appraiser,
Right.
but now you have all the information presented in a way that you can focus on certain things. You can quickly identify if one has, significantly different quality or condition,
Okay.
um, just to kind of, help you understand and analyze your information. And then
So I think one of the things we need to underline there is it's a tool. It can help you, but just as USPAP tells us, we don't have to be able to do the calculations. We need to understand that the information is reliable. And in this case, because you are pulling it from so many different sources, uh, that strengthens that position. It's still the appraiser has to put their final judgment and decision making into play. You can't just blindly use any tool,
any or
but this one does come with the support. So I didn't mean to distract there. Go
no,
ahead.
no.
You tell us.
You're absolutely correct. Like as an appraiser, that our role has changed from data collection. Data now is officially, widely available and accessible, and they're using creative ways to bring that information to appraisers because they realize it takes so much time to collect that data, and our time is
Sure.
very valuable. Um, so data collection is like the first thing that I hope that appraisers recognize there's quicker, faster, better ways, because your
I
job
like
is
it.
really analyzing that data. And
Hmm.
so the next piece of toolkit is the actual adjustment calculations using extraction, depreciated cost, sensitivity, allocation. It actually brings in all of these different standard time-tested appraisal methods and
I
techniques,
like it.
and we use them all together all at once. So you'll see how when you change something, it changes like all the other different aspects. So if you're saying that the site is worth more on a property, then that means your improvements are worth less. It affects your
Okay.
allocation. So now your land to value ratios are different. So it's
Mm,
constantly giving you updated information so that you can check yourself and say, does that make sense? With
okay.
the data of the other comparables, it kind of starts, we use the word framework a lot because it kind of
Oh,
starts building this very small range of opportunities. It's kind of like a puzzle we have. We have all these different pieces and we got to make it all fit in
right.
a way that we can explain it that makes sense.
I like that. I like that. And usually start with the edges first, making
Yep.
the framework.
Building the
I like
framework
it.
and that's that sale price. That's a really important piece of information on a comparable sale is what did it
Uh-huh.
actually sell for? And then we know all the components that went into that sale price. So you start breaking that
Right.
down into the different pieces. And I think one of the other valuable aspects of the tool, like you said, we have to be able to explain and understand the math behind it to a certain degree. Well, the way we design toolkit is to be very visible and transparent so that it actually you click on an adjustment and all the math and support for the math and the technique comes
Oh,
up,
wow.
so that you can actually follow along and see, okay, they took this number, subtracted that, and got this. Um,
So showing your worth.
yeah,
I like it.
it's really designed by appraisers with the appraisers in mind. Now I did not build the technology. We have some incredible engineers that, oh my goodness, it's been fascinating getting to work with that caliber of engineers that see
Right.
things in a more um uh streamlined kind of like from a functionality perspective,
Sure.
they take it to a different
Sure.
level. But
But they took your ideas, your methodologies, and they brought them to life.
yeah,
They made it happen. So this is almost like a child
yeah.
for you, appraiser toolkit.
Yes.
So I like it. I think it's fascinating, and I think it's an aspect that appraisers just we overlook
Yeah.
it. We overlook what the cost approach can do for us.
It's
Most definitely.
incredibly powerful, and I think when you know, reviewing nationally and all the different types of property characteristics and the limitations on data or comparables
Right.
that we have, it's truly, in my opinion, the one approach that works every
Every
time.
time.
I mean, I will say condominiums, because we don't do a cost on condominiums,
Right.
that's the exception. But luckily, those a lot of times we have a little bit better, more similar
Hmm.
property information or characteristics to compare it to.
Sure.
But everything else, manufactured, 2 to 4 family, um, the oddball, unique properties, limited data,
So
rural.
when the appraiser is using toolkit, they use it, they derive their adjustments, they make them. How do they do the reconciliation part? How are they? Do they just cut and paste? How do they get their commentary? What do they do?
Yeah, so within Toolkit, there's an export, and the export, if you use Alamo, um, Bradford Technologies, SFRAP, those software, it's actually integrated into their software, so it
Oh,
exports right
okay.
back into your form. For those that don't maybe use a different software, um, there's an export that as you're making decisions throughout the tool, it keeps track of that, and then it produces an export with charts and explanation and,
Oh, so
all
visuals
it
too.
actually has all the math written out, so you like
Oh, I like
yeah,
it.
very
I like it. No more underwriter requests for additional commentary supporting your
yeah,
adjustments.
yeah. it's pretty slick. If you haven't looked at what's on the market, I highly recommend appraisers. These types of time saving, capabilities that are available today are incredible, and they're just
Sure.
getting better by the minute.
And I say when I teach classes, usually to a lot of more veteran appraisers, I say, if you're still writing your appraisals exactly the way you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we need to talk
Yeah.
because the amount of data and information and technology that's available at our fingertips now is leaps and bounds from where it was, I mean, just 5 years ago. So, understanding what's available out there, it's not a cop out, it's not a shortcut. Well, it kind of is a shortcut, but it's not a
It's
cheater
not cheater.
shortcut. It's use the technology that's available to you to support those conclusions.
Yeah,
I
and I
think
would
that's so key.
I would say even, like, down to adjustments along those same lines, if you're using the same adjustments you used in a different report, that was a completely different comparison. You should
Yeah,
be starting every one of your adjustments from scratch. Every
sure.
report. It changes, it when, 2021, 2022, especially in our market up here, by the
Oh
day
yeah,
prices were changing, which would mean all of your adjustments would be changing. You still have to allocate why somebody's willing to pay more today versus yesterday.
right.
And we just I always use as examples in some of my classes is, taking one appraiser and showing, reports for different locations, different,
Oh yeah,
price ranges, different property types, and usually I hone in on the bathroom adjustment because for some reason it's always the same, high dollar, low dollar, it's always a consistent, appraiser will
yeah.
make the same adjustment for a half bath and a full bath regardless. And, I think it's just really eye-opening when you take a step back and be like, "How long have I been using this adjustment? Where did I get it?"
Right.
Um,
There is no laminated chart of adjustments. It's just there, and if you have one, I have questions.
oh, I was
Market changes, property changes, absolutely, absolutely. So, Heather, if an appraiser wants to learn more about appraisal toolkit, or appraiser toolkit, let me say it correctly, where can they go to do that?
yes, if they could just go to appraiser-toolkit.com, it'll get them on our landing page, and they can check out some of the product features and videos and just kinda get an understanding of what the tool and product does.
Oh, great.
That'd be
And they
great.
can get support, demonstrations, all those kind of good things right there.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
We understand the importance of having the appraiser understand the methodology and techniques behind the tools and software. So, and we also know it's, kind of intimidating to get a new technology and
Sure.
adopting it. So, when you sign in and register, we set you up with a one-on-one consultation to walk you through your first assignment. We have,
Oh, I like it.
yeah,
One on one.
one-on-one. Let's get you in there, um, you know, trying different things, and then we have so many resources. Obviously we have a resource page with webinars and how-tos, and even some of that is built right into the tool. We have a page guide, so you can click on that, and it pulls over how you should think through it, what math is being applied. Same with, the actual math being calculated. You can always click on the adjustment and
Okay.
it pops up. But one of the things I'm excited about is I just launched a 4-hour mastering market-based adjustments course that
Oh,
dives
cool.
into extraction, depreciated cost, all the methods and techniques really behind the tool. And we run through some case studies in class so everybody gets their hands on.
I
And
love those case
I,
studies. Those are the best.
oh, they're so much fun because my goal, um, like, just as an educator and,
Oh, yeah.
being so involved at the industry level is I just want consistency among appraisers.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
I think the only way to achieve that is through, using similar methods and techniques and analyzing the data that's current and, all
Sure.
those different aspects that really drive to a more consistent outcome.
That's awesome.
And this is the way to do
All
it,
right.
guys.
Well, a big thank you, Heather. Thanks for being our guest today. I know your plate is so full, so it really does mean a lot that you squeaked out some time for me and for our listeners. And speaking of our listeners, thanks to all of you. Please be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And thanks for stopping by. Thanks for tuning in to this week's Beyond the Numbers. If you'd like to stay at the forefront of appraisal news, boost your career, or just learn more about the profession, be sure to subscribe to Beyond the Numbers with McKissock Appraisal at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for stopping by.